'Tis the season. 'Tis the season for some more mortals. It is the mortals. And we are doing a sale. Yes, I have a gate. Sale. Everything at NathanMorris.store is on sale. We're going to clear out this inventory. Yes. Get everything for 20 to 40% off. Yes. Head on over to NathanMorris.store. You can get you everything from tees to tanks to hoodies right now. 20 to 40% off. NathanMorris.store. Grab you some of that last minute stocking stuffer stuff and support yours truly so we can keep the lights on here. And speaking of lights, we're talking about the Christmas lights too, or holiday lights, or maybe there's no celebration lights that you would be lighting, but I meet you here. But NathanMorris.store does too, with 20 to 40% off discounts right now. It is episode 218 of The Mortals, and this is a festive episode because it's a festive season. Because whether you believe or not, I meet you here, but whether you believe or not, you cannot deny the fact that there's something different in the air. And that is what we're going to talk about today. The beauty of the spirit that is the Christmas spirit or the holiday spirit, or just your spirit being a little less heavy. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I want you to know wherever you find yourself, it's okay. It's going to be okay. And you are welcome. And I make space for you. Whatever time it is, whatever day or night it is that you're listening to this podcast, may the season bring you a little bit of what I'm talking about. And we're going to go more into that on this 218th episode of The Mortals. No nonsense. Yeah, there's going to be nonsense. No BS. It's a show which pulls back the curtain and takes down the walls brick by brick and exposes the hearts of those caring for those you love most. And we're going to pour some eggnog, get all snuggled up, start a fire, maybe wrap your subpar shrubs with some subpar lighting techniques. Clark Griswold would shake his head at. What am I talking about? This is The Mortals. 'Tis the season to be jolly. 'Tis the season for The Mortals, the group. First looks, first listens, first watches of all things music related, unreleased music, unreleased behind the scenes you can only get with The Mortals and exclusive access to me, yours truly. Yes, you can maybe get a comment, or I try really hard on all the other social platforms, but it is The Mortals, not the podcast. The Mortals, the group, community, because community matters, where you can have full access to yours truly. Friday, not to mention Giveaway Friday, each and every week of swag, which, of course, if you remember, swag is 20 to 4% off right now as we wipe it all out. Liquidate, it must go at NathanMorris.store. Join The Mortals right now and support this podcast. Your support means so much to me by you joining. I'm just reading over some of these stories. I wanted this episode because the season is upon us. We talk about it a lot, and I really mean it. If you have just stumbled upon this podcast, I'm Nathan. I'm a musician. I'm a mortician. I spent 13 years in the funeral profession, and you're like, what? You're talking about Christmas? I don't celebrate Christmas. Well, maybe you don't, and that's okay, because I meet you here. There are a lot of people that tend to they intend to single people out, and I'm this community, because there are certain communities, right? And I'm not trying to be so generic and basic where everyone's welcome, because you got to find your tribe, and I get it. But I want this episode to be one where we just reflect upon the goodness of humanity. And maybe this Christmas season is one where you, as a faith-filled individual, recognize what the Christmas season actually celebrates, and you too embrace that. Maybe you don't. But I want to share stories that just show the goodness of people, because there's a lot of good in this world. And when people's backs are pressed against the walls, they really do show up for each other. And maybe your glass is half empty right now in this life, and to which I see you and I hear you, and you are welcomed here. If anything, I hope that this episode just makes you feel something a little positive amongst whatever it is you're feeling. And there are a lot of things to be grateful for, and I want you to be mindful of I want you to be mindful of what you're thinking and how you're thinking, because it's easy to sit in a certain state. Maybe it's unease, or maybe it's negativity. If it doesn't bring value and make you feel better, then why do it? Why be on that Ferris wheel? And maybe, just maybe, this episode will remind you, hey, I haven't been being my most positive self, or maybe I haven't been the most joy-filled individual. And I hope this can change that for you. No bullshit, no fluff, just stories of goodness. There's this story, Sarajevo in 1992, the Angel of Christmas. And it was during the Bosnian War. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Sarajevo was under constant siege, leaving people cut off from basic supplies. Major Bill Miner, stationed as a UN peacekeeper, observed children rummaging through rubble, their smiles rare amidst the devastation. And he was deeply moved after speaking with a little girl who had lost her family but still sang a Christmas carol in her native tongue. Miner wrote letters home asking his friends and family for help. Packages of toys, clothes, and sweets poured in. Miner and his team risked sniper fire to distribute these gifts discreetly, often at night, to avoid drawing attention from hostile forces. The children's joy rekindled hope in a city that had endured so much. That was in 1992. And I'm sure if you've looked out your window, that's a metaphor. If you've walked to work, or if you've walked to your vehicle, or maybe you've experienced an opportunity to help people, or maybe you've witnessed someone helping someone, it does something. Creates this, I hate using the ripple effect, because it's so cheesy. Everyone uses it, but it's real. It makes you want to do good for other people. And we can get in our own way, and we can make excuses and maybe lose sight of why we're doing something in the first place, and we're missing the mark. Why are we missing the mark? Why are we missing the mark? But then we circle back and realize, oh, well, we haven't done a thing or the thing for people. We haven't shown up for them in a way. And maybe it's not a monetary thing. Maybe you can't buy extra presents, and that's okay. But there's something that you can't deny, that whenever just an act, a goodness outcome doesn't just fire someone up. It's beautiful. It really is. In 1912, and I touched on this a few episodes ago, the Christmas ship of 1912, Herman Schooneman, a Wisconsin sailor, understood the struggles of Chicago's immigrant families, many of whom couldn't afford Christmas trees. Each year he sailed his Ruse Simmons, it's a boat, ship, loaded with trees he had harvested himself. What made Schooneman unique was his refusal to price gouge. He often gave trees to the poorest families for free. And in 1912, after an early snowstorm delayed his trip, he decided to sail in dangerous conditions to ensure families had their trees. But tragically, the ship sank in a sudden storm. The city mourned Captain Santa, is what he was named. But his story inspired Chicagoans to establish community programs to provide trees for the needy, continuing his legacy of generosity today. So this man in 1912 saw a need not just for people, but even those in most need financially, and he made it his life's work to bless them during the holiday season. And I tell you all the time that you all can do something that is good or do something rather, that brings you joy. And because it brings you joy, and if you do it with intentionality and passion, just how it can bless so many people. And it started this movement that today, 1912, 2022, there's a lot of years, math, a lot of years later, it's still being done because of the acts of, I'm telling you, it's in the mundane. It's the thing. It's the mundane stuff that inspires. So do the mundane with intentionality. Then we have the Silent Night miracle in 1818. Father Joseph Moore was a young priest who had grown up in poverty, and he believed Christmas should be a time of universal joy. It's funny because, if I may pause, that's what I say. It's you cannot deny joy that exists at this time, and it is available to all of us universally. Not confined to grand traditions, only the wealthy could afford the joy that Father is speaking of. 2 years before the famous night, he had written Stille Nacht, as I think that's how we say it. It's a silent night is what in his native tongue it translates in English, as a poem reflecting his belief in simplicity and peace. When the organ broke just hours before Christmas Mass, Moore seized the opportunity to use his poem. He asked Franz Gruber, a schoolteacher and musician, to compose a melody that could be played on a guitar. The hymn's humble debut moved the congregation deeply, and traveling folk singers spread the carol throughout Europe in the years that followed. In 1818, the song Silent Night was penned and has been sang by billions of people. And the song is about you and me experiencing the joy that is universally available to all of us. And it's all because something broke. And instead of settling, Father Moore sees this opportunity. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Silent Night. The Great Christmas Eve Rescue of 1913. If you're just, for some random reason, starting the podcast 15 minutes in, we're sharing stories that you cannot deny the beauty of this season that have happened during said season across the globe for the last 150 years. Copper mining in Michigan was grueling and dangerous. I think it's Calumet. But for many immigrant families, it was the only source of income. When the mine collapsed on Christmas Eve, it trapped dozens of men underground. Above ground, their families waited in freezing temperatures, praying and singing carols to keep hope alive. A group of miners who had escaped earlier organized a rescue effort, using picks and shovels to clear debris. The townsfolk joined in, bringing food, water, and warm blankets for the rescuers. And by Christmas morning, all the trapped miners were pulled to safety, and the community celebrated with an impromptu feast in the town square. Feast. Community gathering, because community matters. And I talk about it all the time when I speak of the Mortals group and community. Whenever we go live, it's about community, whether physical or internet. It matters. It really matters. The train that saved Christmas in Alaska. The story is from 1925, and Nome was no stranger to harsh winters, but in 1925, a diphtheria outbreak struck just weeks before Christmas. With no serum available locally, Dr. Curtis Welch knew the town faced devastation. The closest supply was in Anchorage, 674 miles away. Dog sled teams known for their endurance in the Alaskan wilderness were assembled to relay the medicine. The journey was fraught with blizzards, frostbite, and exhaustion. Mushers like Leonard Seppala and his dog Balto braved treacherous conditions with the final leg completed in record time. On Christmas morning, the serum was administered, saving countless lives and solidifying the event as a heroic tale of courage and perseverance. You all have heard of the story of the dog Balto. That's the story, and it is real. A community that rallied to help at all costs, at no cost. It's beautiful. Parents, you all, we stress about gifts and gift giving and will they like it? Did I get the right thing? Did I spend enough? There's the gift exchange thing. There's always the cap is X amount of dollars. And that cap, though maybe taking into consideration most everyone, maybe even the cap is expensive. And we stress over all of that. And I don't remember. I know they were there, the presents. I know they were under the tree and they were wrapped. I know that my mom decorated the most beautiful trees. I don't remember what the presents were, but I do remember my mom skipping around like a Christmas bunny. I do remember my mom playing Martina McBride Christmas CD on repeat on the rinky-dinky CD player over in the corner. I do remember the smell of balsam fir on candles burning. And I remember having this most beautiful breakfast as we shared it, my brothers and I, together at the table on Christmas. And I remember the feeling of love. I don't remember presents. It's about experiencing joy and love and togetherness that I remember. And that's what I want you to hold tight to, because presents, they break. They need batteries that you don't have. And then you stress about going to get C batteries and all the local stores are closed because they're trying to celebrate with their families, and we get mad and then we're like, how dare they be closed? And it just isn't worth it. I hope you realize that. They won't remember the present you give, but they will remember the experience being had surrounding the exchange of that gift. The Christmas feast at Andersonville Prison in 1864. Andersonville was one of the most infamous Civil War prison camps, with overcrowded conditions and very little food. Confederate officer Henry Wirtz, known for his harshness, reportedly had a moment of humanity as Christmas approached. A devout Catholic, he struggled with the suffering he witnessed daily. Secretly, he arranged for extra rations of cornmeal, molasses, and salt pork to be delivered to the prisoners. And while the portions were small, they were enough to create a semblance of a Christmas meal. Prisoners wrote letters home about the feast, describing it as a glimmer of kindness in an otherwise brutal existence. Just a very small gesture, a small addition of something. And at this point, what we're referring to toward an enemy, toward someone or someones who quite possibly could have hurt or taken the life of someone that this man loves. And yet, he showed love. Food. Simple as that. The Santa Run in Finland in 2003. The Santa Run began as a light-hearted event in the small Finnish village of, dare I say, Savukoski, where residents would dress as Santa to raise money for local causes. In 2003, tragedy struck when the town's orphanage burned down, leaving dozens of children without shelter. The villagers turned that year's Santa Run into a massive fundraising effort. Local businesses donated prizes and volunteers rallied to build temporary housing. And by Christmas, the funds raised were enough to start rebuilding the orphanage, and the children were temporarily housed in local homes until its completion. The event grew in prominence, eventually attracting participants from across Finland and beyond. I mean, there's Santa Runs all over the place, and they are fundraising events. And maybe there's times where you're like, I wish I could help, but I'm too small. I don't have enough. And all they did was get people together and say, hey, dress like Santa Claus, run, and let's raise some money for maybe people who can offer financial support. But your physical presence over presents, wrapped gifts. That always wins. The Christmas Eve Baby in 1940. Nurse Eleanor Harris. My grandmother is named Eleanor Ann Harris. She's not a nurse, by the way, but worked in a bomb-damaged hospital in East London during World War II. On Christmas Eve, she heard a faint knock at the hospital door. Outside, she found a baby bundled in a worn blanket with a note that read, "Please love her, as I cannot." Eleanor, who had lost her husband in the Blitz, immediately felt a connection to this child. She stayed with the baby all night, singing carols and knitting a stocking from leftover yarn. The baby became a symbol of hope for the hospital staff, and when news spread, families across London offered to adopt her. Eleanor eventually found a loving home for the baby, ensuring her story had a very happy ending. There are people who would give everything they have to be able to love a child, to have a child. And those of you who are children know this. You are loved very much. And as a dad, I can't even describe the love. I sat next to a guy. At family court. For those of you who are experiencing the disillusion of family or relationships or what have you, there are steps that you must take, and therefore you may understand this, and I sympathize and empathize with you. Need I say more? And this individual said something very profound to me. A very successful farmer back from where I'm from. Tough. His hands, you can look at him and you can say, this guy works his ass off. Like he has the hands of someone who knows how to fix things. And he said, children make a man's knees buckle. And I understood. His tough demeanor was so softened whenever he said that. And he was there for the same reason I was. And it's amazing that this story shows such a good outcome where people were willing to step up and take on a role. So I don't know why I shared that, other than I think it's a beautiful story, and maybe you're a parent, or maybe want to be a parent one day. Maybe you haven't been able to be a parent, and I just tell you to hold tight. We just when we think there's this hopelessness that comes over us, the doorbell rings and there's a beautiful basket, and inside the basket's a wrapped gift. I know that's cheesy sounding, but I think it's very sweet. The Christmas tree that crossed borders in 1977. During World War II, Britain played a vital role in liberating Norway from Nazi occupation. And decades later, Norwegian farmers Lars Torgersen felt compelled to honor the bond between the two nations. In 1977, he selected the tallest spruce from his farm, cutting it with great ceremony. Villagers helped transport the tree to Oslo, where it was shipped to London's Trafalgar Square. The gesture resonated deeply with both nations, and the tradition of Norway sending a Christmas tree to London continues to this day, symbolizing gratitude and friendship. Since 1977, Norway sends a Christmas tree to London just as a way to say thank you. You don't have to do much. I heard of a story from someone I know who's been blessed. They have a beautiful friend that they love very much, and this beautiful friend, they don't have a lot of spare change, but they have this ability to grow a garden at their house. They love canning vegetables. And so this individual was able to bless them with a nice letter and gift card with money on it to their favorite place to shop, while the other individual can only go and pick vegetables from their garden that they worked very hard to grow and then can them and give that as a gift. Both are just as beautiful, And I can't think of, if I had the choice, I would want the canned vegetables. Just saying. If you want to send me a Christmas tree, that's pretty cool. The Gift of a Snowman in South Africa. This is in 1982. Teacher Maria Kumalo, I believe. And forgive if I cannot pronounce these names, if I get them wrong and you were listening and you're like, that story is great, but the name is this. Let me know. You can most certainly click the link in the show notes and get in touch with me. So this teacher grew up in reading about snow in storybooks, but had never seen it for herself. And when she became a teacher in a rural South African village, she wanted her students to experience the magic of snow. Maria, she contacted a childhood friend living in the Drakensberg Mountains who collected snow in large barrels and transported it by truck. On Christmas morning, Maria gathered the children, who squealed with delight as they touched the cold snow for the first time. They built a small snowman even, decorating it with a scarf and a hat. The event became a cherished memory in the village, symbolizing Maria's love and creativity. And I'm certain that you have a smile on your face right now. It's beautiful. It goes on. This is the magic of the season. There is something different in the air, and maybe you have done something for someone that you don't wish to share because you don't want accolades and you don't want acknowledgement for doing a good deed because you're the type of person that thinks that's just the thing to do. That's pretty awesome. But you don't realize the effect you have on people by just doing something so small. And I want you to know that if you've done something nice and you're not one to toot your horn. There's a story of the Secret Santa who paid off layaway balances. There was a single mother in Detroit was struggling to make ends meet during the holiday. It was 2019. She had placed some toys on layaway at a local Walmart there, hoping to pay them off gradually before Christmas. Just days before the holiday, she was told that an anonymous Secret Santa had paid off the entire layaway balance for several families, including hers. The act of kindness allowed her to give her children the Christmas she had dreamed of and reminded her that she wasn't alone. In North Carolina, a single father of 3 lost his job because his car had broken down and he was unable to commute to work. When a local mechanic heard this story, he rallied the community to help. The mechanic donated his labor, and others contributed parts and funds. And within a week, the father had a repaired car, enabling him to secure a new job and regain his independence. The community's compassion gave him hope and a fresh start during the Christmas season. The school staff who paid a single mom's rent. In 2020, a single mother in Texas, juggling 2 jobs and raising 3 kids, confided in her children's school counselor that she was about to be evicted. Without hesitation, the school staff pooled their money and paid her rent for the month. They also provided groceries and gift cards for essentials, ensuring the family had stability during the difficult time. The mother later described it as a turning point in her life. You don't realize, if we just pause and listen and maybe interact with people, or interact by listening, there's opportunity to help. And if people feel safe to share, there's opportunity to truly seek out those who are in need. In 2021, a struggling single mother of 2 posted on TikTok about her challenges affording groceries. Her video went viral and strangers began donating money, groceries, and supplies. A local food pantry even delivered weeks' worth of food directly to her door. The unexpected outpouring of kindness gave her a much-needed break and reminded her of the power of community. In Utah, a single father raising 2 young daughters lost his job right before Christmas in 2018. A local radio station's Christmas Wish program selected his story after a neighbor nominated him. Listeners donated toys, clothes, and gift cards. and the radio station surprised him with the delivery. The father was overwhelmed by the kindness of strangers who turned his family's Christmas from despair and into joy. A single mom working as a waitress in New Jersey was visibly stressed out during her shift one evening in 2017. Regular customers overheard her talking about struggling to pay for childcare in the upcoming Christmas. At the end of the meal, they left her a $1,200 tip, along with a note encouraging her to keep going and not lose hope. The act of generosity allowed her to pay her bills and bless her kids with the Christmas she dreamt. The teacher who bought a car. In Oklahoma, a teacher learned that one of her students' single mothers was walking miles to get to her school, to walk her child to school. The teacher started a GoFundMe campaign and raised enough money to buy a reliable car. On top of that, local businesses pitched in with gas cards and maintenance services. The mother was overcome with gratitude and said it changed her life. And the kid saw hope. A gym owner in Florida opened his business as a temporary shelter for single parents displaced. One single mom who had lost everything in a recent hurricane was given a safe place to stay with her children, along with meals and clothing donated by the community. The gym owner and volunteers helped her secure housing and employment. The single mother in New York City was working 2 jobs to pay for her son's daycare, and of course could not provide for Christmas. Fell behind on payments, and just as she was about to withdraw the child, the daycare director surprised her by wiping away her outstanding balance. The director, who had once been a single mother herself, said she understood the struggle and wanted to help the mother focus on her goals without adding stress or financial burden. And in December, a few years ago, Kentucky experienced this devastating tornado that demolished multiple counties. State of emergency. And I've touched on it before. I felt this desire. We had a big box truck, and I was like, I'm going to park it in a Walmart parking lot, and I am going to make an announcement on social media, and hopefully by day's end, we can fill the truck up. And my silly little human mind, I saw a community fill up a truck, not once, not twice, but thrice times. The first time within an hour and a half. And we drove to Mayfield, and we drove to these other places hit. And it wasn't just clothes. With the upcoming Christmas, it was Christmas trees. It was toys for Christmas presents so that parents could gift their children who lost everything, homes destroyed. They could gift their children while they rebuilt or attempted to figure out how they were going to. We were unloading a truck 3 different times filled with baby formula and diapers, baby toys, Christmas lights. They showed up. A community showed up. And Kentucky is not more special or quote unquote kind. It's just people in general are that kind and will show up. And when you think that, I don't know if what I want to do is big enough or drastic enough or good enough, what mark can I make? When you get out of your own way, there's something magical that happens. I love to fill my heart with stories like this. I love to learn about the goodness and dignity of people because it ignites something in me. Throughout the year, yes, but in a special way this time of year. Because I've had everything and I've had nothing, arguably, from a financial standpoint. And that doesn't make you any happier. What makes you happier is experiencing love and goodness from and to others. Bottom line, family, bottom line. And maybe financial struggle is where this meets you. Maybe surplus. I can't speak for you, but I assure you that you're good enough, you're valued, you're loved, and there's people at a moment's notice who would drop everything to assist. And I just wanted to express and share some goodness during this holiday season, because maybe, just maybe, it'll remind you that there's goodness during this holiday season. And if you wish to help, keep your ear to the ground and look around and be willing to listen. And if you need help, maybe you are too prideful to ask for it. That's okay. But I do know there are people who are willing. I hope that this season blesses you in a profound way. And although you don't celebrate it, perhaps the joy that I know is available, the joy that I know that exists, I hope with everything I have that it finds its way to you and you're worthy to receive it. It's almost Christmas. It's pretty amazing. I got a message. Well, I get them all that. I say that. I got a message. I received this message. You're the reason I became a funeral director. Your song Yet is absolutely amazing. It's my favorite. Wow. You're the reason. I really love hearing from you all. And I really love these connections that we've made. I do. I have a lot happening in 2025. And not to not be present. There's a lot of really good things. The new single's coming out. And if you join the Mortals, you're able to be a part of hearing it and knowing more than anyone else. Actually help me pick singles in the future. Head on over to the Mortals. Link is in the show notes. And have first looks, first listens. Speaking of trying to and wanting ways to help, that's a way you can help. That's how you help, by buying merch at nathanmorris.store, and by joining the Mortals. You are financially supporting and keeping the lights on, supporting this podcast, supporting the music and movement. And I meet you where you are, and I would love it if you did that. There's so much to be excited about and for. And I wanted to share that you're pretty awesome. And I'm grateful for you. And this week is a very special week. And you're genuinely in my thoughts. And that's a really cool thing. I know when people say it to me and mean it. And I mean it when I say it to you, listener or viewer. I may not know you, but I think of you and I wish you well. This is episode 218. I hope the nugget today is that goodness exists. I feel warm and fuzzy, and I will see you very soon. Cheers.